good. Can hear my audio feedback now. Let me check my channels. Ooh. Got 5 on it. I'm hearing beep. Need to pause. Okay. I've got 5. Sweet. Alright. Cool beans, cool beans. Alright. Hello everyone. I am Stephen Osborne here again to continue building my little project Webent. A couple weeks ago did 2 streams kind of designing and building out the first iteration of the website, and now I am going to continue building out some more content for it. Let me be a little modest here, button that up. So let's see. So today we're going to be focusing on taking the website's content and making something that kind of showcases what the site is going to be focusing on for the next foreseeable future, for the next few weeks at least. I'm going to be sticking to this schedule moving forward of 10 to 2, Monday through Friday. And so should be able to get a lot done within that schedule. And offline, I actually took care of the web hosting for Webent. So it's actually live now at webent.net. But as you can see, this is just this is template content. This is all basically lorem ipsum, or in this case just WordPress default content. Let me go ahead and actually, so yeah, we're going to be swapping this out. We're also going to be working on fixing up this header. We're going to be getting rid of this sidebar, making it more dynamic, being able to pick specific sidebars. And we're also going to flush out this footer. Let me go ahead and pull up the design that we had, the paintbrush mockup. And you may recall that with the paintbrush mockup, we set a background to look like a canvas, a blank canvas with a little bit of noise and an off-white color. We're going to be programming that feature, that capability into the site, but we're going to make it so that we can swap out that background color or that background image, make it more configurable rather than hard coding it right in. Now you can see here, this is all just hand sketch, just sort of conceptualizing what kind of content we're going to be creating. That being said, this top fold, so as I was saying earlier, you can kind of see some noise there. This top fold for balance, I'm just going to go ahead and grab that, and I'm going to use that just for that top fold. That being said, though, this font here, this text balance, is not going to be part of that. So I hope, I may not have, but I hope I layered it. If not, it's not a big deal. So all that content is in one layer. I'm just going to select that, cut it out, and I'm going to grab this little section of, it's just balance. I'm going to delete it. So now, I'm going to switch over to the drawing pad, and I'm going to kind of fix up those clouds a little bit. Jump on, make sure I'm on that proper layer. B for brush tool. Let's see. Kyle thick and thin. Wet media brushes. I think that's the one we were using before. I might have been using this dry actually. I'm gonna go ahead and stick with the thick and thin. 15 pixels. Yeah. Okay. So just sort of, add back to it. In fact, a lot of these over here just become scribbles. Just try to give it very light lines. Okay, I don't like how I did that there, so just get rid of some of that. There we go. So the image depiction here is clouds sticking up out of the cloud, or mountains poking up out of the clouds, but then the clouds continue to extrude out, really defining the separation of content. So this is the top fold. It's ended with the clouds, and as you can see, if we make a guide at the very bottom, most southern clouds, we end up having like some extra space here. That's okay. In fact, we can have these clouds kind of protrude down into the content below it, and it can kind of give like a nice transition. So that's all good. We're also going to be using this empty space here to put in the title balance, and then we want this portion to connect or link to a balance page, and then on that page we're going to be posting all of our content for balance, and then eventually we're going to be creating balance its own website, but that website and website design is going to be connected with this same network. But for right now, we're just going to be archiving all the content within its own area on its own page. Yep. Might actually make a custom post type for that. I'm thinking about it. So that each individual thing that gets uploaded, all of the scanned documents and everything can then go into a post type. We'll figure that out as we get to it. For right now, we're just focusing on just getting the overall structure and also working out more of the code and everything with the site. So obviously, we're not going to be using this portion, the image, title, lines. Instead, this is just a placeholder showing that if we're going to have any kind of blog content, we're going to have the featured image, the title of the blog, an excerpt, and then a call to action button, and then we're going to be daisy chaining or offsetting it. So first one left, then right, then left, then right. And then at the bottom we're going to have a section for author or artist or whatever. And being that I'm the only one on the site so far, I'm going to use my image right there. So let's see. Yeah, the moon's fine. All of that is good to go. So switch back over to the keyboard. Oh, that's right. Let me go ahead and put on a little bit of music. Where did the music go? Here it is. Let's see what level 5, Miracle of Sound, has got for us. That is pretty loud. Alright, let's see. Let me make sure that this isn't too loud. Oh, you can't like hear it at all. Alright. Oh well. It should be fine. This, I want something more just... Okay. This will work for now. Okay, guys. So here we go. I am going to take this layer, which is that top layer. I'm going to extract it. Real quick though, I'm going to delete whatever is over here. Not delete that portion. That paintbrush doesn't work very well with mouse. It really requires the pressure sensitivity. Okay. It's just like crazy loud. Oh, it's super loud for me, but you can barely hear it because I turned down. Okay, let me turn this up a little. There we go. Okay. So, been working on this with Local by Flywheel. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is spin up my environment. Oh, I can already... Eyes. I wear glasses just to help my eyes with the strain of staring at screens too much. According to my eye doctor, people who stare at screens are 80% less likely to blink when they're supposed to. So you blink 80% less often. I think that's what he actually said. So I have to be conscientious about blinking. I use these glasses to magnify things so I'm not straining my eyes as much. I'm trying to focus. And So, real fast actually, let me make sure. I'm going to pause the music. I'm going to listen to my feedback over here on Facebook. Okay, I can barely hear myself. So I'm going to turn this down to about 4%. There we go. Now it's a little bit easier for me to hear myself think. Hopefully it's still loud enough. Let's see. I'm going to check it one more time. Okay. I can barely hear myself. Hopefully it's still loud enough. Let's see. I'm going to check it one more time. Ba-ba-ba-ba-ba. Sparkling water. I can't hear anything. Jeez. Pull up the driver real quick. Microphone is set pretty high. Maybe I just need to speak up more. Maybe I just need to speak up more. I don't know. I don't think that's what it is. Well. Oh shit. I keep forgetting to record these. Oh well. Download it. Make edits later. I don't think that's what it is. Well, start recording it now. Actually. So, I am going to be investing in a better setup here pretty soon. Going to have an actual condenser mic, get a better webcam, get some lights to illuminate. So, I am going to be investing in a better setup. For now, just got to deal with the headset, the laptop camera, and just doing this all from my laptop. Got to work with what you got. Oh shoot. Okay. God. Alright, that was, I'm sorry. All the feedback. Oh, getting started with streaming. There's so much to learn, so much to get used to. Let me go ahead and put the music back on, and then we're going to jive. So this isn't really a tutorial type stream. This is more of like a build along. I kind of talk about what I'm doing as I'm doing it, but for the most part, I'm not going to be going into all of the nitty gritties and whatnot. So here we go. So I pulled up local by Flywheel. I am going to start my site, Webent. This is the same one in the previous streams. Down here in Visual Studio, right click it, go to Webent. Some release notes. I'm going to go ahead and close everything. Pull back up. And review site. Pull it over here. And as you can see, it's the exact same site that we have at webent.net. So before getting into, alright, this music is just too distracting. I'm putting on more chill music. Okay. Before getting into too much, need to actually change the directory to the theme, wp-webent, and then run npm run dev. And then this is going to start the dev environment. And then I'm just going to expand the console so we can see it. Alright, have it down here. And the thing about WP Rig is it already has a lot of styles and it already has a lot predefined for us, but I'm not a huge fan of how it's actually structured out. It has post CSS functionality for nested styles, yet it doesn't utilize them, and I think it even might throw some CSS linting errors when we use them, but we don't have Sass. We're not using Sass, at least, so I at the very least want to use nesting. I find it far easier to keep track of my code. And it looks like there's a lot of code sniffing issues in the components, and but the thing is that those issues they're not gonna break anything. Oh, that's right, we never did get the browser sync working last time. So let's actually take a look at that real quick. So in WP Rig, I'm going to jump into config.json. My proxy URL is WP rig.local. That's not right. It's going to be webent.local. Don't need the HTTP. 181 looks fine. Quit the job. Gonna run it, rerun it. I think that might have been the only thing that was actually an issue. Didn't have the right proxy.url, or proxy URL. Shit. Can I have /? Maybe not. It's too late now. It's actually running it. It's still trying. It's defaulting to localhost 81. Huh. It's creating its own localhost. Okay, cool. So we got browser sync working. We don't need to use localhost, just this 8181. So if I come over here to the webent.local :8181, I now have browser sync enabled, and it's kind of hidden, but it just popped up right there. I'm gonna go ahead and close .NET, and I'll give you a quick example of what that is. So if I wanted to pull up, do I not have Firefox installed here? Oh, I haven't done much with this operating system. Oh my gosh. Let's say I pulled up this same URL in another tab, another window, but I wanted to see how it looked on mobile next to desktop, right? If I scroll on one, it scrolls on both. So it kind of syncs both the browsers. You can kind of see how it works from one to the other. And if I think if I click on a link, it'll go to the link on both. So if I go back to home, it'll go back to the home page on both. So it's a way to set it up in multiple different browsers. You could do Firefox, Firefox, Chrome, Opera, Internet Explorer, uh, all of Edge, and what's the other Safari. Set them all up, put them all in mobile mode, and then scroll through and click around and in one of them, and you can see how it works in all of them. It also makes it so that when you save the code, it'll refresh. It'll automatically inject that new code into the page without actually reloading the page. So if you inspect element and you just test some code through inspect element and then make changes to the code itself, if the code that you changed doesn't overwrite the code that you were testing with, it'll just inject it and it'll keep that test code still in there as well, so you can kind of see how things might work. So you, for example, might set it up to see how certain elements look when they're hovered over and whatnot. Still very feasible. Yeah. Anyways, so definitely have a lot of busy work to do with close these with these styles. Really gonna be reworking the styles completely. Mainly because I'm not a huge fan of how WP Rig handles them. So I made all these folders for specific sections, and I've decided that this is how I'm going to organize my styles. I'm going to make one more folder. I'm going to call it global, and then I'm going to go to global.css, scroll all the way to the top. I'm going to keep it as it is for now, but a lot of these are also going to be getting modified. Custom properties I'm going to keep directly within the source folder, mainly because, actually, you know what? No, I'm going to go ahead and put all of these. Okay, I've been working with it's Control Alt, and then tap down to make multiple selections, and then I'm going to go into the global folder for all of these, and I'm going to grab custom properties, reset, throw those in global, move them, typography, element, and links, typography, element, and links, throw them into global. But I already know that in editor it pulls a lot of these as well, so I'm going to go in here and add. It's basically going out of the editor folder and then back into global to get into all of these. So I think the only one that's not already in there is block and media. Actually, I'm sorry, blocks and media should be in content. So then I'll go back into editor and I will change those to content. Yep, I'm pretty sure that was one of the only. So front page doesn't pull in any. This is pulling in blocks and media, so let's go ahead and do content / comments doesn't pull in any. Custom media, these are the custom media queries. We're going to be adding on to these as well. Okay, so yeah, that covers all of our already existing imports. We got our custom properties, which this is all of our variables and such. We're not going to move custom media because this is only actually being called in through the configure files, and it's using a very complex system to have future-proofed variables used as media queries, and it's intended so that once these actually become supported by browsers, they're already ready to go. Um, that being said, I don't know really how that has progressed, so we'll see in time. Um, they might already be supported by, for all I know. There's just so much going on in the world of CSS. All of the code, you can't really keep up with everything all the time. Especially for someone like me who's trying to learn about game development, game design, and I'm focused on art and creativity as well as code and everything. I gotta just focus on what I specifically need and what I need to know in order to keep pushing forward without getting bogged down or wrapped up in something that's really, not all that relevant. Anyways, um, header is going to be the first thing that we actually focus on, and that's going to be the site header. It's also going to be content header, but we're going to be doing that a bit later. So header is just, generic for any kind of header. In the global, we have the reset, and then we have typography. And then in the typography, we have defining stuff for the H1s through H6. This should be in header, seeing as these are header elements. But they make sense to be in typography because it's just a generalized typography element. So we're going to go ahead and keep these here, but we do want to make sure that we add in and extend on the variable family. And we will be doing that throughout this, but and a lot of this, like you can see, like font size for citation within a block quote is defined right there as 13 pixels. A lot of things predefined by this theme, but they're there for us to go in and modify. Not a huge issue. Very, very, very easy to work with it. Let's see, what kind of CSS reset does this use? Normalization based in part on normalize.css. Okay, so that's like a huh. Interesting. This is a very odd reset. It's a reset, but it's defining a specific H1, but with just making it twice its size and then giving it a margin of the top and bottom, which, again, you're never restricted, you're never defined, you don't have to utilize any of this. So there's just so much to unpack. So for right now, I'm going to leave things as is. Links, leave that. I find it odd, though, that links is importing this custom properties. But why? When global is already calling in custom properties. So when I used to think that, okay, in order for post CSS to actually be able to reference the variables, you have to have it imported before or at the top of every page. But that actually doesn't make sense, because the way that post CSS actually compiles the CSS is it goes in, it finds this file, and then it just imports it. Yeah. And once it compiles all the code, it puts it all in one file from top to bottom. And so the global.css file, once it's compiled and minified, will start with all the variables. So anytime you reference a variable after you've imported it here at the top, it will be able to, it'll have it for reference. So then to import it again, up here at the top here, you're just double importing it now. And I can only imagine, I'm pretty sure that Post CSS will recognize, oh hey, we're importing the same file again. So let's just skip that. I'm pretty sure that's how it works. But this is also, oh yeah, it's still, if I had to guess, in editor styles, it pulls in links, but it also pulls in custom properties. So yeah, I don't know. It's odd. Huh. Same with typography, same with elements. They all are pulling it in. Don't know why. But okay. I'm gonna create a new file in header. I'm gonna call this site underscore site dash header. And then another file underscore site. Navigation. That's CSS. Forgot to put the .css on this one. I'm actually going to rename that to underscore site dash nav, because I'm then also going to have a new file underscore site dash top dash nav global has accessibility. Alright, up here at the top. I'm gonna cut that out. I'm gonna go into global, make a new file, underscore accessibility. That's CSS. Paste that in. Make sure that actually underscore paste. Okay. I'm gonna save that and go in here. And add it there. Ability. Add it. Oh, actually, it's already there. It's just needs. And even this table of contents, I'm going to be modifying this. So, variables is this first one. Oh well, variables and reset. They both kind of fall in the same category. And then this is going to be base content. You know what? I even feel like accessibility should go after reset before typography or anything else. Cute. There we go. So actually I'm going to call this more of a meta. Styles, setup, and then base content, and then we've got this layouts. I'll go ahead and do the same with this. Cut it out. Underscore layouts.css. Paste it. Save. One here. Underscore layouts. Again with forms. global. Ugh, don't forget the .css. Copy, save, global underscore forms. Save. Now we get a header, the site header, which I think that's my hand. Oh no, that's the underline and everything. This should be in its own file. In header, under site header. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and save that. Go back to global. But we're no longer doing base content. Now we are in top fold content. And of course, top fold includes the site header. We're not in global anymore. We're in header underscore site dash header. Now, the reason why this would still be in global is because the site header and the top fold, well, I guess not top fold, because the top fold can vary from page to page, but the site header will always be the same, essentially. So I guess we'll just do site header. Yeah. And so we're going to pull in this underscore site dash header dot css, and then we're going to also pull in site. Actually, new file. So site header, yada yada yada. Yeah, okay. Back to the global. We'll actually import header site dash nav. Actually, let's do site menus. No. You know what? Yeah. I'm going to define specifically site navigation, the main navigation. Type or top bar navigation is going to be its own thing. So the way that this toggles, because that's basically what this is, it's just how it's going to toggle opening and closing on mobile and on desktop for navigation elements that have child elements underneath it. That's how this is going to be handling it, and this is what's going to be getting a lot of rework today. And then you got the main navigation and everything, and this is also just kind of like a global navigation. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and just grab all this, even the main navigation. Content navigation is kind of its own thing. Yeah, it's like Page Nation, all that. I'm gonna go ahead and just cut that out. Go to Site Nav, paste it in, hit save, close all these others. Forgot to give site top nav a .css. Content navigation. That would fall under content. New file, underscore navigation.css. Go global. this content navigation. Pull it out for the content navigation. Pop it in there. Come back here. We're now getting going a little far with what would be defined as global, because I feel like content navigation should get loaded in with content styles. So this is very potentially gonna be moving over to a different style sheet later on. But for now, I'm gonna keep it where it's at. It's content and then navigation.css. Save that. And then we just got this basic footer. Go into here. New file. I didn't even. We'll just go with footer.css for now. That site footer. Let's go ahead and actually take this. Actually, let's just copy it. Go up to the top. Pop it in. They're all, directly up at the top. Footer underscore footer. And then infinite scroll. I mean, that could be global. We'll leave it right there. Globally hidden elements when infinite scroll is supported and in use. When infinite scroll has reached its end, we need to redisplay elements that were hidden by a dot never ending before. Huh. Alright. So now that we've restructured the CSS a tad bit, go ahead and close that. We can come back here, reload the page. Shouldn't have to reload it since we have browser sync, but never hurts to give it a nice good old refresh. And go ahead and close most of these. We got content.css pulls in block media, and then all this entry stuff. So like I said before, the content navigation should probably just be imported right here. You know. So I'm going to go ahead and just do that now. So content underscore navigation. .css save. Go back to global. Get rid of that. We're also going to restructure, so site header. Base content. Style setup. Now, of course, we could go through each one of these and then list out each actual file. That's a pain. I mean, you can just scroll down and see which files are actually there. So table of contents. Although it makes a lot more sense when you got a large CSS file that's, you know, hundreds of lines or even thousands of lines, to then give you an idea of like what to search for to get down to that area. So you would say, I want footer styles, then search for footer, and then that'd take you to footer. But this is 56 lines of code. It's not that hard to just scroll it. So we're not going to bother going any further with that table of contents. Let's see. It looks like comments actually changed. What did comments change? What did I affect on comments.css? Nothing. It doesn't import anywhere. Yeah, no imports. I don't know how this changed. Odd. Okay, so let's go ahead, jump into header, and we're going to start with site header. And Control Shift Z, Control Alt Z, Alt Z. Yep. Okay. Alt Z triggers word wrap. Just Alt Z. Just let it ride itself off into the distance. So this is what we did in order to get this line here. Header image. For now, I think having it as a direct imported SVG is fine. But it would be nice to actually create configurable options in the back end to put this in, so that if we wanted to swap it out or make it easy to just get rid of it completely or whatever, we can do that within the back end and it be defined and updated. Oh, yeah, I know what that's about. So we have site header just by itself. It is typically ideal to make styles to not go overboard with nesting them. So if you have a class, just call that class. But what if it's a general class and it might coincide with another class that's being used somewhere else with the same name? For instance, header image. We can't necessarily just say header image is always going to be in the site header. Header image could very well also be a post header image or a page header image. It could become a header image for anything, but it's already predefined to just be defined on its own and to give it a centered margin. I'm not a fan of that. So if we go in and we inspect the content here, close that, you can see we have site header and then site branding and then site title. I think this is custom logo, so let's see, where is actually header image being used? Nowhere? Okay. Oh, I know. Okay. So the reason why it's actually not nested in site header is because it is the under customize. It is this header image here. Am I actually using this? No, I'm not. I was just testing it. Let's get, yeah. So it doesn't belong in site header because that should be page header. The way that I see that, it's oftentimes looked at as, okay, this is going to be a header image that can be put in the very top of the site. But the issue I have with that is not only does it is it weird, um, the feature itself has it so that you can add multiple multiple images. So let's say I wanted this. I cropped it, but I can randomize it. So I can add a new image. Crop that. And now I can randomize it between these two. And it'll either load that one or that one. There's no way to... why have a randomize feature if it wasn't to define something a little bit more basic? So I feel that this feature is more in line with pages. If a page doesn't have a header image, then you can define a header image here, and that header image could go behind the page title. But then you should be able to define on that page, don't use the header image at all. But you can define a default. You can define multiple defaults, and it'll load a random one. I feel like it's a little bit arbitrary, and not a lot of people use it. So I don't know, it's not for me. I have built it into past themes and have utilized it, but I feel like it ends up becoming a lot more of a headache than it's actually worth, and I don't see me using it on this site. Yeah. So while I have it fresh on my mind, I'm going to go ahead and jump into not gold ink, and I think it is in the customizer components, and then header image, header underscore image. See. Where is it? It initializes block name header text. Well, it's not in here, then it's got to be in functions. No? Functions has got nothing. Oh, no, that's the wrong functions. Let's go into this functions. And it's basically just saying add support. Custom auto. We can just search in WP rig-webent for custom header. It is in a component. Oh, it's a custom header component. And this is where it's defining that, is in custom header component. Again, I feel like it's not a feature. It's not a feature worth supporting. To be quite frank, I still have quite a bit to figure out as far as this setup goes, but we under the ink folder we have theme.php, and it looks like it's right here that actually calls in the component files and declares them. So if we wanted to get rid of that feature, probably just comment out the custom header right there. Reload this. No longer is there a custom header. We still have, of course, the file in here. So we wanted to re-enable the feature, we could. There's really no point in removing the feature if we're not going to use it, except for the fact that there's a feature that could potentially break things later. And there's really no point in having that. I do recall moving the actual PHP snippet that calls it in, and I knew that I did it wrong, and I was just like, whatever, not a big deal, because it's not important to me. I think I threw it into entry header. Or maybe it was entry. Yeah. And then no. Somewhere in here. Let me search. Find the folder. The custom logo. Page header. Custom header. Yeah. That's right. So I put it in page header. Get template parts, header, custom header. I believe get template part. This would be where I would want it to actually load. Header. Custom underscore header. Do you not put that PHP? I feel like it should. But these don't. Huh. So let's see. If I re-enable it. Should go like right there, right? You know what? I'm gonna install a very useful plugin. I don't want browser sync on the back end. I have no plugins. Great. I am going to install theme. Oh, what is it called? Theme template. Jeez. Template. It basically just tells you what template files are being loaded. But for the life of me, I can't think of what it's actually called. And of course, WordPress has like the worst search for theme template files. Jeez. I don't think it's this. WP template viewer. WP theme template files being loaded. That's interesting. Sorry. I'm not trying to go through an entire tutorial just to get template files. Jeez. Developer plugins. WordPress. There's debug bar, query monitor. I got a feeling like I've never used this, but I think it might do what it is I'm looking for. It at least shows that it lists what template file is being loaded. It's not quite exactly what I was looking for. Template file. Page template? No. Oh, gosh. I can't believe I'm having such a hard time finding this simple plugin just to see what... My gosh. Man, I was using it not too long ago. Well, I guess I'll just try out Query Monitor. This looks like a pretty good one. Let's see. So it pulls up this whole thing. Okay, template. Theme, template file, index.php. Wasn't all those. So this is loading through index.php, not front page. The page. Oh, we don't have page, not PHP, huh? assets, and then let's go into optional. And in order to handle page, just pages, over all other content, we're going to go ahead and just throw page in there. If we reload, we now have page.php. Okay. Template, content entry. Let's see. We are going to use custom page templates later. Do want single as well, but template parts. Double click that so it doesn't go away. Content entry. Entry header. Yeah, what actually loads in page underscore header dot php? Just the error pages? So, see, page header should be loaded in on pages. So now that I know that, we could just go to a 404 page, and now you see it's finally load that in. But if we had it set to random, we can close that, customize, and go to header image, randomize. It'll randomly load either this line or the top half of the logo. See, sometimes that, and sometimes that. So I'm going to take a quick break, be right back, and we're going to continue to explore this. we are back. Alright, so as you can see from earlier, uh, there are some issues when it comes to WP Rig that requires us to sort of reroute things. Because even though we're using page.php, it's not loading the page header template file, which doesn't make much sense. It's doing it because the theme is initially set up to just work with all things using index.php, and index.php is built in such a way to try to comprehend everything that's coming in and just sort of handle it all in a generic global way. But we want specific. We want to be specific. God. So, yeah, we've got our page header. Let's go to page.php and get template parts, entry. I'm pretty sure there's like an entry page. No. So how, if we're only going to content and then entry, which this handles the generic content of everything. What would be a good way of handling that? So let's go back to page. We're in the main content. While have post, get template part, entry. Let's see what entry does. And it's basically, if is singular, it's basically saying a single post, then add in pagination. But we don't have pagination. Does I've always just assumed pages don't have reason for pagination. Do WP pages singular. Let's see. Let's read up on what singular.php is. It's the nature of it. Point being, if you don't have a page.php, it will use singular.php. Same if you don't have single.php, it will fall back to a template lower in the hierarchy, ideal for themes that have the same layout posts, but is singular function. Let's read up on this function. Determines whether query is for an existing single post of any post type, post, attachment, page, custom post type. Huh. So it shows comments when supported, and if it's a post type, it'll get pagination. Interesting. Interesting. Gosh, I don't know why I'm so tired today. Pushing it. Well, I'm going to swap out article here for section, just while I'm here. And let me save. Entry header gets the title, gets the meta. But what's page header do? What's different about page header? Header, it's page title, makes it an H1. Wait a second. Oh, if home end is not front page. What? Else if is search. Else if is archive. Ugh, jeez. I feel like page header should be meta header or something not specific to page. Alright, well. This is literally built. It has no. It won't do anything if it's a legit header. It'll only do it if it's on the archive, search. If it's on the home page but is not front page, then it'll do posts header. Or on the home page but doesn't have a post, it'll say nothing found. Or if it's just a 404 page. Oh boy. Okay, I'm going down a rabbit hole that it's just a little too much right now. I'm having a tough time like just keeping up right now. So go ahead and close that. I'm not gonna bother with all this. I'm gonna go back into here, customize. I'm gonna get rid of where was it? Header image. I'm gonna get rid of these images. Oops, that page can't be found. Fine by me. Okay. So go back into here. Template page.php. Okay. Actually, I am gonna get rid of that custom header component. I'll leave it as it is right now, but for now, I'm just gonna get rid of the feature itself so that it doesn't trip me up later. Once I want to reactivate it or possibly use it, then I'll just go turn it back on and then go from there. So close that. Close this. Let's see, what am I doing? Going to page. Gonna get rid of the get sidebar. I'm gonna follow template part, entry. Actually, you know what? You see here in page how it says get template part, and then it points to entry, and then it has the second component, page. I believe that if I were to take this, copy it, and paste it in, and gave it the name of entry dash page, it'll load this. And we can test that by just typing in test here. Yeah. So now we're specifically saying, all right, we want to not use just the generic entry loop. We want to use this new entry loop that we just created here. And then from here, we can tell it we want to use page underscore header. That being said, why? Why would we want to use this header? I guess we could add another if statement in here that just says, hey, if none of these, let's see what happens. Let's just go give it page underscore header. Save. We don't get a header. Then if we come down here and just say else, else if anything, or no, just else, and then grab header. Keep it in line with the way that it's being handled up here. You know, let's see. The archive title. I just want search results. It's none of these that I actually want it to say, so it's just got an entry header. And just copy this one out. Just so it's to the generic. But again, you know, why would we want to do it this way? There we go. We get that. I just feel like page header is poorly named. You know, it should be, you know, like meta header or error header or I feel like meta header is the way. So I'm not gonna use this. I think I'm gonna end up renaming it meta header. Find every instance of this of page header actually being utilized, rename it to meta header so that it isn't broken, and then create my own page header, one that can utilize that feature. Might as well, I guess, build it in. Might as well just do it now. Meta header. Search for page header in all of the template parts. Let's just find it in the. So we got it here in the index. Let's do meta. Save. Meta, save. Meta, save. And I may end up coming up with a better naming structure for it. It's just, it feels meta because it covers so many different possibilities. None of which are specific to pages. It's specific types of pages that are handled through other templates. So there we go. We've just renamed meta header and had all the instances calling to it, and now we can create page header. .php, and we can take entry header. Just use this as a starting point. Copy it in there. Template part for displaying a pages header. And it still uses, you know, these other basics, but we can do with however we wish. So we can actually add in, you know, get template parts like we had earlier, but instead of content it would be header. fact, why is page header in content and not in header? In fact, entry header I feel like should be in header, not content. I guess content what the idea was that header is supposed to be site header, but it's like we're not doing that because we want site header to be defined as site header. So we got branding, we got navigation, and then custom header was supposed to be in the site header as well, but we're moving it into page header. So you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and throw page header into header. I think that's where header files should exist. Let me think about this though for a second. Yeah, whatever. Go to page, get template parts, content, entry, page. It's gonna pull in entry dash page here, and get template parts, header, page, header. Save that bad boy. We lost our header. Let's just go here and test. Oh wait, no. Not like that. Outside of the PHP test. Okay, alright, we got our header back. Just needed a second there. Alright. We got rid of the sidebar earlier as well. I'll explain that. I prefer to have the sidebar within the main structure. So you have a section for content, then you have an aside for sidebar, and then you have a footer for footer, and you've got header for header. So I do main and then header, section, aside, footer, and then that is where everything goes. So we got page header here with our header class that will go directly within the main. If we go to entry page, we have section, right? So I don't want it in the section. Or do I want it in the section? No. Well, no. I do want this to be up in its own. And then even the content footer here. Is search else entry content. Don't really need a if statement here. Just go ahead and get the entry content and get the footer. And then down at the bottom you can also put a section for comments, pagination. To be quite frank, I feel like this belongs in the footer. So I'll go to entry footer, which isn't much. taxonomies. Action. This is for like when you're logged in as an admin to edit, modify. I'm gonna go ahead and just pop this bad boy chunk of code in there. Yep, I feel like that is a much better location for it. Okay. Now, it may seem like I'm just like completely destroying the HTML structure for a lot of this, and in a way I am, but intentionally. It should be pretty easy to redefine, how I want my HTML to be structured. So you can see there's like empty space here because that's where the sidebar used to be, because WP Rig thought it was a great idea to define that that's how it's going to be. And so you can see here, primary is only so wide. That's because it's expecting there to be an aside right next to or right after that fills in this area. But there isn't anymore, because I don't want a sidebar on this one. I want it full width. I want to only define exactly when and where I want to use sidebars. So, and I have my header and then my section of content and then the footer underneath it. The section should also have a header for the content itself. That's why nobody really, when HTML5 was first defined, it was defined with outlines, and it was meant for web crawlers to be able to crawl the sections and different HTML elements such as section and header and article and footer and nav, all these new at the time it was newer tags that were semantic. They had purpose and meaning behind them, and they defined specific elements, types of elements. And so then you would have to have a header, some sort of H tag in there that titled what that section was, or what that tag actually was. So you would say, all right, throw in an H2 and say, this is site navigation, or this is top bar navigation, or this is meta navigation, or this is pagination, or this is content, or this is content header, or this is content footer. And then, obviously the design of the page doesn't always define or need a header to define what each section or each tag actually is. Kind of gets a little annoying. It's more for screen readers to be able to navigate and such, or for web crawlers to navigate. So then you would add a class to each one of those elements that would hide it, or not elements, but to each one of those header elements, H2, H3, whatever you use, to hide it from view, but it was still visible for screen readers. I typically still follow that ideology, but I think that it's been dropped. I don't think it's necessary or used, and I don't think it has much of an impact on SEO anymore. I'm not even sure if it ever did. It might have, and it might still. I'm not an SEO expert, but I do know a lot about accessibility and SEO. And I learned HTML5 8 years ago, so things change, especially in 8 years. So, and I'm not going to go back and relearn HTML5. I'll learn new things that get added to it, but I'm not going to relearn things that I already know, and I don't feel like it's a huge necessity for me to go and like try to figure out what has changed over the years. Huh. PHP threw an error. Interesting. So let's see. So this only being a certain width is a CSS issue. It'll be in the main elements grid. So there's a grid actually being defined right here on site, and that's kind of unfortunate because grids are very powerful, very, very useful, and it would be pretty easy to modify it. It's just that they can also get a bit complicated and confusing pretty quickly. But we can see here global.css line 82, but we already know that we've modified all our global. So if I reload it, still says global 82. Alright, so let's go to our CSS assets. Let's go to global. It doesn't go to 82. So layouts. It's gotta be layouts. Oh, it's gonna be under global layouts. Yeah, all the grid and everything being defined right here. Dot site. Sidebar query. Oh, gosh. That's another thing. It has a query specifically for when using a sidebar rather than I could see that being useful in some way, but I'm going to go ahead and jump into custom media right here. I'm going to close all these other folders. We're going to start working CSS. So we got our HTML structure pretty much defined for the most part right now, at least. Let's go ahead and jump into CSS editing now. Go back into layouts. Sidebar query, I got an issue with that. So let's go into custom media. Sidebar query is right here. It's at 35 rem. Just rem to pixel. It's usually 16, and I'm pretty sure they use 16 as the default pixel size. So if we do 35 rem, it's 560 pixels. So just paste that and then highlight it. Oh, geez. The heck? Is it really not going to let me just comment out at the end here? Okay, it is. But it isn't. Odd. Huh. Alright. That's comment, but it's not highlighting it green. I don't know why it's not recognizing it as a comment. I mean, I I should also be able to do a single line comment. I guess not. So let's see, 37.5 is 600. Five, 720. And of course 35 was 560. So there we go. That doesn't make sense. Oh wait, yeah it does. Yeah, it does. So oddly enough, by default, WP rig says go ahead and throw the sidebar to the side while we're still in menu or narrow or within the mobile query. And these queries are just god awful. Yeah. So I'm going to rename them. But that means every time I rename one of these, I got to go find every time it's being used. So I'm going to rename narrow menu query to menu or mobile query. Actually, I'm going to do these all. Why end it with query? I'm going to do query mobile. Oh, shit. shoot. Gotta get the original name. Let's just go ahead and copy this block down here. I gotta find. I'm gonna go query mobile. And the reason I'm doing mobile is because with mobile first, you don't actually use a query. You just define this as the global. So you use mobile first design is saying the initial styles are mobile, but there are some times where mobile requires such an outlandish style to do or to create a user experience that you obviously aren't going to want in tablet or in desktop. And so you only use the mobile query when you say this is only on mobile. So all the styles are mobile and up, global, and then when you have styles, it's like this is only for mobile. It's we aren't going to use these styles later on. Then you use the query mobile, and that's going to basically say use these styles up to 600 pixels. Then we're going to then say, all right, we want to add on or we want to modify the currently existing styles with query tablet and query desktop. From this point upward. And obviously there's got to be a bigger difference than 120 pixels from tablet to desktop. So I'm going to be upping these numbers. And as far as sidebar, I think sidebar can just be defined at tablet or at desktop. And in this case, it was already being defined before tablet anyways. So I feel like this is a much easier way to keep track of what the query is actually targeting, why it's targeting it. And then you can also do one more, which is widescreen. Or actually, I'm sorry, max content, or just content, or max, or full width. or just full, query full. And this is like at the max query where you hit that the max number. All right, so let's go ahead and find all instances of narrow already being used. And it's right here in the site. So I'm going to come in here, I'm going to find query mobile, replaced it. Alright, let's find every instance of wide menu. Let's replace it with query tablet. Oh, come on. Oh, jeez. Okay, so wide menu query. And replace it with query tablet. And save that. Do the same. Here there's 3 instances of it. Save it there. Now find content query. Swap it with desktop. I'm just doing a find and replace on all these pages where it's being used. And just gotta save, close, Control S, Control W to save, close window. And then one last sidebar query. And I guess we're just gonna say sidebar on desktop because why not? So I'm gonna find sidebar, switch it with desktop. Yeah. Great. Now we can delete these old media queries and save. Now we can define different numbers here. I'm going to go ahead and close these. And if we go right here, just toggle device toolbar, we get this responsive and whatnot. We got a drop down for a bunch of different mobile devices. We can see iPhone X is set at 375. So let's try and find the largest one, Pixel 2, 411. Pixel 2 XL, still 411. Galaxy 360, Moto 360, iPhone, oh wow, my 375, iPad. See, iPad is tablet, and that's at 768. iPad Pro, Surface Duo, Galaxy Fold. Galaxy Fold is 280. So none of the mobile devices actually go over 450, let alone 500. Let's see, any mobile device above 450 pixel display. Popular screen resolutions, designing for all. So the actual viewports on all these iPhones, the highest being 414, and then iPod, okay, and then iPad again, tablet 768. Android phones 412. 412 is the highest, and then tablets 768 is the go-to. So I think it's safe to say that we can make, let's see, 480 for Samsung Galaxy Note 5, which is actually the phone I have. 480. Do 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 do. Note 10, 412, 412. So I'd say 480 seems to be the highest. Let's make it 480. Oh, it's at least the highest on this list. And it seems like a pretty comprehensive list. And Note 5 is a pretty old phone, but hey, it's not old enough to be obsolete. As I said, I have a Note 5. It's probably, what, 4 or 5 years old now? I think Note 5 was released in 2017. 2015, so it's 5 years old. Yeesh. But it's still good to be backwards compatible to at least 5 years. So 480, we could just round that up to 500, or we could just hit that mark at 480 exactly. It's probably safe to just make it 500, so let's go ahead and do that. With that being said, these are using M's and then REMs, and that's so much. In fact, this is defined as 600 because I was doing the math for REM, because I just now realized it's M. And it's such a weird way of doing things. So we got to pick one or the other. And I've always used M's. REMs, they're related or relational. I forget why there's the R, what the R actually stands for. But you can define that by, at least you can define it with font size. Because you define it on the HTML tag, and then it propagates it out from there. And you define it as 16 pixels, then you're able to do calculation, which makes it easy to do, like 1.5 rem equals 15 pixels. Or in this case, 45 rem equals 720. What? Huh. It's overly complicated for no good reason, in my opinion. So, I mean, we could just simply go 500 pixels, or in this case, up to 499 pixels, and then from 500 pixels upward. But tablet, we saw, went all the way up. Oh, shoot, did I close it? I did. Let's go back into this. Popular screen resolution, blog, and tablets can go up to 1280, but that's obviously desktop. So let's see, 768. So we're going to be in tablet at 500 up. When is a good point to break out of tablet? I would say 900, because 1280 is a bit much. 900, break out of tablet. Or you know what? Let's break out of tablet at 1024. Because I feel like 1024 is a good point to define, alright, we're in desktop territory now. Yeah, let's do 1024. It's provides plenty of space. So desktop is going to be 1025 pixels. And I'm doing 1025 because we still want the iPad Pro to fall into the tablet layout. So this will keep the iPad tablet within um, the tablet query, and the desktop will trigger at 1025 just after 1024 pixels. And let's see, our max is going to be 1640 pixels. So essentially, we are working with intervals of roughly 5 to 600 between each device. Mobile gets up to 500 pixels, and then tablet gets up to 1,000 pixels, and then desktop gets up to 1,600 pixels. And then at 1,600, we then are going to constrain things a little bit, and we can do, or we don't necessarily have to constrain, but we can trigger a new layout that has widescreen features and can maybe rearrange content even more so and really spread things out. For instance, like Netflix, when you have it on widescreen, it's going to showcase as many shows as possible all the way over to the edge of the screen. It doesn't confine. So may end up using that same logic when showcasing content on this site. For right now, we're going to use it just to constrain because, again, keeping things simple and moving forward as with the mindset of this just being a blog, just kind of a singular site with basic content. Once things expand and really grow, then we'll add on to it. No point in defining the pixel values since we're actually using pixel values now. Save. And everything should be good. This is still sidebarring because we haven't fixed that yet. We just fixed our media queries. That's pretty important to fix right away. Let's go ahead and save those queries. Close. All right. Global layout. Again, if we go here, it should tell us that it's under underscore layout. Layouts. Yeah. Why it's not is a bit concerning, but actually it might require that I rerun the dev environment since I moved these files around and everything. It might not be registered that these files actually exist, so it just looks like to browser sync at least that it is still within here and that it's loaded directly in. That's fine. For right now, I don't really need it. Go to layouts. Has sidebar. Has sidebar is not being loaded in dynamically. So let's go ahead and search for has sidebar. Components. This is included in if not an array based on front page 404 500 and offline classes has sidebar. Man. This is basically stating that these pages absolutely have to have sidebar. Not a fan of that. But for right now, I'm going to leave it alone. Just got to keep that in mind. So has sidebar comes before site. So has sidebar is going to be in the body or in the H. No, it's going to be in the body. Yeah, right there. Has sidebar is added into body. So So I gotta come back into here. Go to page. This is the one that's being loaded. It gets the header, so we gotta go into header.php here. And this is where the body is being loaded, and it's just loading body classes. Body class. Ugh. This music is kind of creeping me out. I'm gonna skip it. And WP body open. Let's just look into this body class here. Let's just read up on how the body class functions. Space up a string of array of class names to add to the class list. Yada yada yada. Okay. So let's search. Where's this being modified? It's not being modified. Has sidebar. An array base name template. Returns classes, filter body classes. So where is this function actually being used? Some more components, great. Add hfeed. Initialize. This is where it's defining has sidebar. Add custom classes. Whether a sidebar is present. The array of body classes. So it's basically just saying if the sidebar is active, then boom, throw it in there. If not an array, base name template. What was it saying? Boy, this isn't how we're going to be handling sidebars. I'm just going to comment this entire function out. We go back here, we get a fatal error. That back, but then go into theme.php, 48 sidebars, components. So this entire component needs to be reworked essentially to use an ACF field that I'm going to be building in. We're going to be adding sidebars or widgets. did it actually throw an error if I comment this out? Oh, because you know what? This function is being made public. But they're not actually being defined. So just don't initialize it. As you can see, that fixed it. Back here, it's now full width. It's not loading in the grid system. Yeah, right there, body class. That's where it's using the filter on the body class to add in the has sidebar. We're going to extend on this later. However, shoot. Yeah, we're gonna have to create another component to handle ACF fields. We're gonna do that in a much later video stream. I'm not going to be getting into that just yet because that's going to be a lot more of a high level type development stuff. But I'm going to be creating an ACF component that's going to handle how global theme settings are going to be handled, as well as page and post themes or post configurations are going to be handled. And it's also going to handle how flexible content is going to be handled. Today, we're just going to use Gutenberg because later I'm going to be testing Gutenberg as well as ACF flexible content with Gatsby. So today we're just going to use Gutenberg since it's ready, out of the box, ready to go. However, I prefer ACF flexible content because I define exactly how the HTML structure and styles are rendering the content. You can modify how Gutenberg works fundamentally, but it's a pain. It's a huge pain. And you could, of course, override the styles, but again, that's a pain. Especially since some of the styles are written with important being used, which when you use exclamation mark important on a CSS on styles, you're basically saying this overrides everything else, no matter what the hierarchy is. So to override it, you have to use another important style that has a higher level in the hierarchy. So basically, you define a more important. Oh man. So this week I'm testing out how 10 to 4 or 10 to 2 works with my schedule. I'm feeling it today. I feel like I need more of an opportunity to actually wake up so that I can bring the energy that this stream really deserves. I'm gonna go get some more content, or I'm gonna go get some more coffee real quick. Be right back. Coffeeed up, ready to go. All right, so we have our sidebar pretty much fixed now. We aren't displaying the sidebar, and we don't have styles. We basically got rid of the styles that handle sidebar. And that is being handled here in layout for has sidebar. Site header at query desktop is going to do grid column. Why? It's just like um, we don't have anything defining it as a display grid, only when it has a sidebar. But now we're defining that all these have columns and such. It's just oh boy. All right. I'm going to set the layout from mobile up to use display grid. This might not be a great idea, but we'll see how it goes. So straight out of the gate, dot site, which is basically the canvas, the ID canvas. This is the div that wraps around everything, all of our content. Gonna give it a display grid. Sorry, excuse me. Oh boy. I'm gonna give it a grid template of columns. This is just gonna be one FR, so it's just gonna take one fraction. Actually, I feel like auto is fine for, let's just do one FR. And then grid template rows is going to be auto. Margin 0 auto, sure. Not that there's going to be any margin issues left or right. Max width 100%. Sounds gravy. Now in here we've got site header. Site header. We're going to give it a grid column of, actually, you know what? I don't know why. Let me go ahead and pull up an articles, web design, complete guide to grid. Because this is what a lot of development is. You just have to look things up again. Grid template. Yeah, that's what I was looking for. So grid template areas. We're going to define that in site. Grid template areas. And then it's probably the only CSS rule where makes sense to actually go underneath it and start defining things. So I'm going to do header, content, footer. Oh, I'm sorry. Sidebar, footer. Yeah. And then I think it's grid area. What is it? Grid area. Yeah. Then you just define grid area. Grid area. this is header. And then we can come back in here. Then we have site main. Where are we using site main? Because I feel like that's a dirty way of saying it. This should be site content. Or main content if you're gonna keep the word main in it, since it's a main tag. Let's replace site main with main. Well, actually, let's make sure main content isn't being used anywhere. Nope. So, site main. Replace it with main content. And of course, we can do a search and replace everywhere directly right here. And these are all the template files that are pulling in. Yeah, CSS files that are pointing at it, some more template files. Yeah. Let's go ahead and replace in all 19 files. Great. So now we have main content. I prefer that personally. And then there's also primary. So we got ID canvas, ID primary. Let's make that an ID of content. But the thing is that content gets used a lot. Primary. I'll leave primary alone. I don't want to mess with that. I don't really play with the IDs all that often. Don't know why I'm closing all those folders. I just like to have things defined exactly how I prefer to define them. But primary, you can see here, you got main, and then you've got post ID with post 2. Even though it's a page, it's got an ID of post. Why? Hey, who knows? Let's see, what was I doing? Oh, that's right. I was somehow closed it. Assets, CSS, global layouts. I'm getting hungry. So site header, grid area of header. And then we got main content, dot main content with a grid area of content. Pretty sure it doesn't need to be, it doesn't have to be wrapped in a quote or anything. And then we have site footer, not site. Let's see what our sidebar actually looks like when it gets loaded in. It has an ID of primary sidebar Sheesh. Let's just use primary sidebar for right now. Dot primary sidebar, grid area, sidebar. So now what we can do is like say, all right, site has it all defined this way. Then on mobile, once we get to tablet, actually, the only time that we would need to change this is on has sidebar. So let's go ahead and get rid of all this. I feel like all of this is, yeah, this is no longer necessary. Yeah, none of this is necessary anymore. And we could do a dot. Oh shoot, no, because has sidebar comes before site, so yeah. Let's bring this up here, just because this has to do with site. Might as well keep them both right next to each other. And this is saying has sidebar. We already have display grid. Just we don't want to define a margin all of a sudden. Grid template columns. It's not desktop query tablet. I feel like would be fine to put. So columns go from 1FR to 3FR, 1FR. And then grid gap, I guess we keep it 2rem for now. Justify content center, that's fine. But we're going to have to redefine the grid template areas. Because now we got four fractions. So each one is 25%. So header is going to be header, 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 header. Content is going to be content, content, sidebar. And footer is going to be footer, 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 footer. So those are going to be the 3 rows. So each one of these is a row, and it defines each column, and header is going to be, we only got 1 fraction, so header is going to take up that entire, and then that's the entire. So in here it's 100%. This is how they're going to stack. Now that it's broken up with sidebar on tablet, we're going to break it up into 4 parts so that we can have it 25%. And 25% might be a little bit small. We could do 33% by making it 2 and 1. And then content would be 66%, sidebar would be 33%. And basically we would just have to delete 1 of each. But I think let's just keep it like this for now. It's pretty basic. And then that's all we would have to do to handle that conversion, because these are already assigned to the grid areas, and they will correspond to how the template area gets modified. And of course we can modify it any which way we want. So that is when we have sidebar, right? So, but to be honest, we only really want to modify it like this when there's sidebar. Otherwise it will always stack this way. Sidebar is only even in there. Oh, you know what though? If I define sidebar, then sidebar isn't actually in the HTML structure, will it break? Let's see. So we have site. I think it'll just skip it. What is going on? What is the issue? It's finding all these issues right now. It just doesn't like code sniff. It may require me to restart the dev environment. Alright, so while that's restarting, I'm gonna go grab me a quick little snack. Get me through this last hour. Alright, there was a critical error. Failed to find custom properties. Okay, where did it fail? Source content CSS. Oh, you know what? I think it's in this editor folder. No, no. I see. I gotta update it on each one of these. Great. Okay, so let's take every instance of this specifically and replace it with global. Oh, jeez. Gotta do it manually because not all of them are gonna be, well, they might. This is in source There's content. Content media. This is in global elements. That should be fine. Global links. That should be fine. And this is also in global, so that also should be fine. PM run dev. And we are up and running. Back. So you see here on site, you can kind of see, as I highlight over it, these little broken lines, little dashes. That's defining the grid. So you've got the header outlined, and then the content, main content. And if we scroll down, you see the footer is also wrapped. Even though sidebar is defined, there is no sidebar. It's not even going to render in an area for it. Thankfully, because that would suck if it did render in an area. I'm gonna go ahead and put this mic up while I eat this. Also, now that we reloaded the dev environment, it should have it should recognize all the new files that I created earlier. So now when I go on this, click on the site, instead of it saying global, it's telling me, all right, this is being defined in underscore layouts, and then it's in underscore elements. So now everything should be updated as it should, with as far as defining where things are within my CSS structure, which is really cool. Site header.css on line 20 is where this is being defined. So we can now work through our site header. You might think that CSS grids would be good for site header as well, but I feel that well, it could be, definitely, it could certainly be useful. I typically use Flex because Flex is kind of responsive, a little bit more responsive to the elements around it. That being said, when I'm thinking about it, you could really define, exactly an area for the top bar for the nav, and then the logo and the title and everything to the left. Thing is that maybe you want the top bar to take up the entire top space of the entire header, and maybe you want it to span all the way from left to right with the content of it, staying within the content, padding your content with. Maybe you want it on top of everything, or maybe you want that top header to just be on top of the site navigation with the branding taking up all of the space on the left. So there's kind of a give and take there, and you don't really have that kind of flexibility with grid per se. I mean, you do, but you have to define each one. Whereas with grid, you can just simply say, if I want the top bar to be full width, make it full width, and it'll go full width and it'll push everything else down. Otherwise, just put it to the right and try to, fit it in where it'll fit. Of course, the way that I would handle that is have a backend configuration, and if you want the top bar to be full width and top an actual bar, then you can define that, and then that would load in a CSS class on the site header that would then trickle down. It would be on the site header, and basically site header would either say, all right, well then with that class enabled, use this grid layout. By default, we're going to use this other layout, but if you want that layout, then use this layout instead. So I think actually I'm going to use grid on the actual site header, and then in the navigation I'll use flex. Yeah, I think that's the best way to go about it, because we can still say auto adjust things, but make sure that this is aligned over here and this one's aligned over here. So okay, so we currently have flex. Remember, we want to do we always want to be mobile first. Well, this is actually where it might have an issue. Wow, now that I'm thinking about it, the way in which the HTML is structured really matters here. So we have a div for site branding, and then we have a nav for the navigation. And then in the navigation, we have the button for displaying the navigation, and then another div to show that navigation. Now, if we had a top bar, we could either put that top bar in a div that's within this nav, so that when we show the navigation, that top bar shows up here at the top. But then when we go to desktop, we'd want that top bar up here at the top, or at the very least above the site navigation here. But with grid, if we were to make this grid, all we really have to work with is this site branding and then this navigation here. We can't really necessarily trigger that top bar by itself. We'd have to use a little bit of CSS trickery to position it absolutely or whatever. And so I feel as though it's probably best to give that top bar its own navigation tag and give it its own layer within this. However, making it responsive on mobile, putting it in here, doesn't really work anymore because it won't be nested within this now. I guess if you want a top bar at the very top, you could keep it a top bar at the very top, even on mobile. So much of web development requires to like pre-plan what kind of approach you're going to take. Because once you start building something, you can get in, you can be hours into the development and then realize, oh, I wish I would have started a different way, but I'm already, in a sunk fallacy. But then if you go and try the other way, you realize, oh, this actually doesn't work out as well as I thought it would. So then it's best to try to experiment with things. But when you already know how it's going to play out, it's more of a defining a route that can encompass any other situation in the future as you approach it. So I think what I'm gonna do okay, this is what I'm gonna do. We don't have a whole lot of time left for today anyways. I've only got about 50 minutes. And instead of trying to figure out exactly how I'm going to approach laying out the grid and doing these styles for my navigation, my site header, instead what I'm going to do is I'm going to work through the code that's already in here, defined by WP-Rig, and I'm going to nest things, and I'm going to organize, because it currently is all over the place. In my opinion, it's all over the place. And there might be a reason why it's laid out the way it is, but it doesn't make sense to me. I prefer to have my styles, easily organized from top to bottom, and with the media queries specifically targeting where it needs to change and what's changing within that portion, rather than, I hate doing just a chunk of CSS and then saying, okay, now here is when we hit this media query and all this chunk of CSS, because you might need to modify something down here, but you're up here, and you got to find it down here, but then maybe there's another media query even further down that changes it again, and it becomes, I like to see, here it is, here's where it changes, and then it changes again, and it's all in one block, all in one location, rather than trying to jump all over my document. So I'm going to reorganize things, and I'm going to nest things, because why not? So site header I think is fine, but just to give you an example of what I'm going to be doing, you see how it's site title and then site title A. It's targeting any A class or tag within the site title. Might as well nest that. So just go in here, do and A. Boom. So earlier I was talking about keeping styles as you don't want to nest too much because it can get real sloppy once you start nesting a lot. So site description is out here by itself, even though site description is within site branding. In fact, all of this is under site branding. But site title isn't a class that's being used anywhere else. There's no need to use an ID for that. So it could just be by itself. But this A tag is absolutely within a site title. It was being defined within a site title, so I might as well just nest it within the site title. You're going to see a lot more of this in site nav. But here we go again. We got header image, and then an image tag within header image. Just do the ampersand image, and then we got it nested. Custom logo link, site header, header image, site branding with a AD query, site title, a tag, site description, site header, looking good. All right, now this we have 200 lines of oof, and we've got this basic navigation menus, handles, submenu, and small screen toggle. So you can see that it's all underneath nav dash dash toggle dash small. And this class is also being used in the JavaScript here in navigation. Toggle nav dash dash toggle sub. If we wanted to change this class, it wouldn't be hard. I think is that really the only spot? Oh yeah. So we could change the name of this class here and then modify it in the HTML through the PHP and then target it differently here, because quite frankly nav dash dash toggle dash sub is a bit much, to be quite frank. But there's no need. There's really no point at this point, at this juncture. So instead, we're gonna just keep it as is. What I am gonna do is I'm gonna open up this to be nested. So dot menu toggle was already nested in there, but now I'm going to give it its own section within it, and then I'm going to take every other one. So this is dot menu. Dot menu, and here we have two. We have drop down and toggle. So I'll just delete that. Go and cut it. Pop it in right there. Delete this. Now we've got a media query for mobile that makes it display block. So nav dash dash toggle dash small is what we've got up here. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and close that, and I'm going to open this just to keep an eye up here at the top level. Just put it over there, just just to really make sure if I have to double check what am I working with. This is the beginning of, well, and then, so this is directly on it. There's no space there. So this means that it has this class and this class on it. I'm going to cut that out. I'm going to go and pop that in there, but this is for a specific media query. So actually, in this case, I will put the media query on the outside, since it is only triggered on that. Now we have query tablet for all these other things, but we already have menu toggle up here. So I'm just going to, this is where we're gonna menu toggle. I'm gonna go here. I'm gonna pop in that media query. I'm gonna open it up, and I'm just gonna do display none. Yep. And then I can delete this. And then we also have menu already. Again, can't do it this way. Yeah. And select both of those at the same time. And do it like such. So now menu, media, query tablet, display block. Got that for menu. Now we got a new one, UL. So I'll go down here. And I will create UL. And UL. This is specifically for this media query. That. And then we have drop down and drop down toggle. Select that and then hold Alt to select all this. Copy. Go in here. Fix the alignment for that. This is nav toggle sub, which is not what we were working on. In fact, let me make sure that I didn't just make that same mistake. Oh yeah, these are sub. Aye. Is its own nest, which would go after this one. Ay, bummer. Okay, so let me do this. I'm going to save this. Should open up source tree. Just need to make sure that I didn't overlook the parent element, because now this is sub rather than small. So let me make sure, and I did modify quite a lot today. Just need to find, what is it, site-nav. This used to be global. Unified, I want unmodified. There it is, source global. And oh wait, okay, this always linked out to screen reader text, layout, forms, header. Oh, here it is. Okay, so we've got small, small, small. I see. Okay, drop down was always sub. So let's take drop down out of the small and pop this boy into sub. Yeah. So display none sub. This was small. This was small. UL was also sub. So let's grab UL. Put him in with sub. Drop down toggle. Already got that there. Drop down symbol is sub, but I don't think I got that far yet. Yeah, drop down symbol is next. Alright, so yeah, everything else is looking good as far as being in small. I don't see any other use of toggle sub yet. Yeah. Alright, so just checked the original just to make sure, fixed up what I missed. That's the beauty of version control. So let's see, let's take this drop down symbol, cut it out here. We've got sub, drop down UL, pop it right there, give it the ampersand, give it to the media query that it is. This is also sub, but these are both in the UL, and they're drop down and drop down toggle. So we could just go ahead and grab that there, go into UL after the media query, drop down and drop down dash toggle for both those, and paste that there. It's the same media query though. UL drop down symbol. Rotate. Okay. Got that drop down symbol done. So drop down toggle hover, and do we have a drop down toggle under sub? Symbol, drop down toggle, yeah. Yeah, drop down and then drop down toggle. So we need toggle by itself, and, or actually toggle and menu has toggle. So let's do that. So we could actually handle this in two different ways, right? Since drop-down toggle is being used twice, let's actually throw it there. Never mind. Sorry. I know that there's a way to do it that way, but it gets a little confusing when you try doing all that. So, what I'll do is I'll copy this, put it after the drop-down symbol. Put it right here. Get rid of that. Get rid of this. Toggle hover. And the item has toggle, hover, and then drop-down toggle. Oof. I made the same mistake again. Put all this in UL and it doesn't belong in UL. When organizing it this way, you do have to be careful that you're not nesting it in the wrong spot. So let's see. Go back to the original, find UL. It has just what it has there. And then it's got drop down and drop down toggle. And it has drop down symbol. But then we get out of UL and then we're just on hover. So it was just this most recent one here. Get out of UL. I also gotta make sure that I give it a media query. Still in sub. Yeah. After UL. In fact, this was here before everything else. I'm going to go ahead and move it up here because it was originally higher in the higher up. This display block, focus within. Okay, these all are sub, yeah, and their query tablet. this one. Yep, all good. All done with that. Media query. And now we start with a new nest. So we got nav toggle sub, nav toggle small. We can close those to free up some space. And now we got main navigation. And got this A tag right here. That was within main navigation. Give it to ampersand. And then we got hover and focus on that same A. So now we can just do hover, focus. Not that I'm a fan of giving it a underline, but you know. Main navigation UL. Ampersand. And then another UL within that UL with an LI in it. So now we know we're in main navigation. We find UL, we find a LI. There isn't an LI in UL, so we'll make one. This, for some reason, came after the one above it. Doesn't make much sense. And this is a query tablet. And then at A. With a padding. Media. Oops. Media. A. Okay. UL, LI, first child. I usually do these pseudo elements before media queries, or within media queries if it's specific like that. Alright, so here we got a UL, ULA, and we got UL, UL. So we're going to open it up, which means we've got to make this LI on its own. And so we're UL, UL, A. UL, ULA. Give it its media query. God, how much further? Oh, we're almost done. So main navigation, UL, UL, LI. It's right here. I'm going to put the styles there, but we know these styles are under a media query. And then, was that a UL, UL? Oh, yeah, okay. UL, UL, L-I-A. Sheesh. This media query. And UL, UL, UL. With this media query. And then main navigation and dot menu. Did I not close UL here? A missing closing tag, it looks like. And I'm gonna go ahead and just put menu. I guess at the bottom of this. Although I feel like this deserves to be a bit higher up. Don't forget to give it the proper media query. Yeah, these are all like global styles, and then this is more of defining. So I'll go ahead and put it there. Okay, well, we've got everything reorganized for our site navigation. StyleNet only likes there to be one space after or at the end. I think this is a good time to wrap up the stream. Tomorrow I'll be going through this and working out a lot more of the actual styles and everything. The thing about this theme is that it has such predefined structure. It's a great structure and it's a great place to start, but it's not my style. It's not the way that I like it to be organized. So as with any theme starter, you got to go through and you got to reorganize it to get it the way that you like it. Once you get it organized in a starting position, save it. And then use that as your boilerplate moving forward for every new site that you make. I'm going to be extending this theme so that it is configurable and functional on a variety of different type of sites. But once I'm done organizing everything and I have a solid structure and style to start with, I am going to be saving that as the version 1.0. And then that'll be where I start with any new projects moving forward. But then I'm going to continue to develop and add features and flush it out with more and more capabilities. But I want it to always be at a position where it can start anew and move forward from there. And as I iterate on this, I'll be saving those and publishing them as well. And speaking of publishing, it's good to go in here and stage all of my changes and add a little comment: reorganized, or actually refactoring theme files for better organization and functionality. Commit it, push it up, push. Then over here on local, I can push to flywheel. Not going to see many changes on the live site, but the code changes are being pushed up. So that's going to do it for today. Appreciate you for checking it out, and I'll see you tomorrow, 10 to 2. Y'all have a good one.
Peace.